to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It means something. It means something. You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact. We're all up in your face. It is time for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it.
Weird times to be alive. Weird times indeed. Thanks, as always, to the Thrasher Piece Theater, fellas, for the great show. Tonight we have none other than Justin Pearson of the incredible Locust, Swing Kids, Planet B, 31G. So many awesome things. Very excited to talk to that guy. In fact, let's not wait. Let's just get right down to it, poppers. Justin Pearson, awesome guy. And very excited to be talking to him. This dude's done a lot and continues to do a lot. Continues to be a source of inspiration, not just musically, but just with a relatively tireless work ethic, we'd say. Once again, first time joining the show. This name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. ProtonicReversal.com for the archives. Always podcasted everywhere. And I think we actually have JP right now. Justin Pearson, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks.
I'm digging your abort unwanted presidency shirt. It's incredibly timely.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like relevant a second time. Like,
yeah. Oh. Sometimes you get like a novelty T-shirt. You think, this will be good for the one gag, the one reference, and then in this case, hey man, it's come back in style.
I've got a lot of mileage out of it. I like. It's actually a nice fitting shirt, and I kind of I don't really think about it when I wear it, and so I'm like. At the grocery store, and people are like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, this. Oh yeah."
Yeah, it's like when you accidentally wear a incredibly jarring T-shirt. Like Gay Witch Abortion always gets some weird looks, and I'm like, "What? Oh yeah, right, okay, sure."
Anything with abortion is good, I think.
Yeah, because the thing is, people are like, I don't know if I'm offended by that or if I think. Like, what? Am I offended by that? I don't know. And that's kind of what makes it a great band name, I think. And a great band as well. Justin, thanks so much for being on the show, man. Really appreciate it. Really, really great to have you.
Thanks. As
we've clearly established, weird times to be alive. Time of this airing, it's January 14th, 2021. Let's check the is there an insurrection happening right now.com, and it looks like not currently, but yeah, man.
I'm curious to like find out what the next fucked up thing will be. Like, it's like, oh, this happened. Oh, then this happened, and then this. And you're like, oh shit.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to like UFOs coming and taking Trump away or something. Like, I don't know. Like, it could be cool.
Yeah, what's the if you have your bingo, right? your bingo card. What's next on the bingo card? I don't know. What is next on the bingo card? If you had alien invaders, then whatever. You've almost completed your square.
I'm hoping that death is on there, but I don't know.
The sweet release of death. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I guess it depends on what, just like in general, like death as like a
for Trump.
Ethos. Oh, okay, specifically. Gotcha. Okay.
His whole family, except his like his niece or whatever, like she's cool, but everybody else, fuck them. I read this crazy article about like Ivanka Trump's like Secret Service, they had to like spend like $300,000 on a toilet or something. Like
I read that today, and I was trying to think. Do you remember? Like, there was a news article about like an expensive toilet like years ago, like when we were kids. And I was trying to. I was like, what other like? Why is this expensive toilet thing like ring a bell in my mind? Do you recall this? Is this like a Berenstain Bears like alternate universe thing that like didn't?
I don't know. I mean, I remember there was like Trump only shat on a gold toilet or something like that. But I mean, the one now is like it's not that crazy aside from the fact that like Ivanka Trump has 17 toilets in her house and she won't let Secret Service use them, and they have to rent like a department for like the 24-hour security to shit in.
Yeah, it's how much of a class distinction is that? It's like, yeah, you're not even fit to take a dump in this thing. Like,
well, to their credit, like they're probably like that dude's gonna upper deck our toilet because
right. Oh yeah, that's what, man. Can't say I wouldn't if the situation were reversed.
Their bathroom up, man. It's funny because there's been like all this doxing happening. There's like this coffee shop in like North County. It's like called Coffee with a K, and their Instagram has like 3 coffee mugs with K's on it. I'm like, dude, that's like white power shit. And the guy was at the insurrection, so everyone's like talking about like we gotta go fuck this coffee shop up. And I'm like, dude, it's super easy. Go use their bathroom and just you can shit the top, bring super glue and just like fucking glue shit up. Like I'm like, dude, it's really easy to bum those people out. Like you just gotta be smart.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for some folks maybe it's easier than others, but it's sort of like if you ever were in a situation where you had like adverse elements around you, then you had to sort of come up with inventive ways to be a thorn in the side. And it's sort of like, oh, to see those actually deployed on a larger level, and I guess moreover having people like just discovering them, it's like, oh yeah, welcome to the party, first time.
Like stink bombs are kind of hard to get these days. And, but like super glue is fucking rad, dude. You can just fuck everything up.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many choices now. There's Gorilla Glue now too. Yeah. There's all these other varieties and styles. Yeah. It's like Elmer's was like the only game in town for safety glue, but for some reason, like the super glue market is completely expanded. So power of the free market.
There's this Proud Boy that like parks over by this coffee shop, and I keep seeing his car, and he's always in it, which is kind of weird. And he's
just chilling, just lamping, like what's
I think he gets coffee, and then like since you can't hang out in the shop, he sits in his car.
Oh, okay, sure,
yeah. And then I guess today, like my bandmate from Planet B because his studio's right by there. He saw this woman in the liquor store come out with a swastika tattoo on her back that says "White Pride" and got in his car, and I'm like, fuck, man. As soon as we see them not in their car, like super glue, like
yeah.
That's easy. But yeah, he's got this on the back window. It says like stand down or stand back and stand down.
Right. The thing that fucknuts said at the one debate. Yeah, which is like. How prescient was that, right? Anyway, yeah. We all get it. We all understand the references. Hopefully, and if not, consider yourself lucky. Talk to me about pandemic life for JP, man. Like, are you able to keep creative right now? Like, it's a struggle for everyone, and I think one thing that's been kind of cool with talking to people on this show during the pandemic is kind of figuring out how everyone's getting through it, and everybody's dealing and coping with this kind of weird realignment of almost everything.
Yeah, so I mean, right before the pandemic happened, I was like in the middle of working on 3 different records, and like just a lot of shit was like in the works, and it like I found ways to like still do most of it, so I've been busy. I think the weird thing is like I had 4 tours get canceled, and so it gave me more time at home, and so I feel a little bit of an anxiety, like fuck, I should be doing something. And that coupled with the fact that like I don't have any income, like makes me think like, well, I mean, it makes me think like, oh, I should like do as much as I can. So like when I can tour, like I'll maybe have some income, so
like bank some stuff so you have it just like ready to go when it's time for that to go.
Totally. Yeah. And even like, aside from that, it's like, there's a lot of shit happening that like can influence art. And so it's like, I'm constantly thinking like, just weird stuff, like fucking super gluing a white power dude's car, like, like it's constantly like, like these lyrics or like this thing or like this phrase or like this beat or something, like, let's do this thing, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. There's a lot of shit happening, and I keep having to like kind of like step back for a second and be like, just chill the fuck out. Like we're in a pandemic. I shouldn't be doing like a bunch of stuff, like.
Yeah, I think because I've spoken with other people that have a pretty tireless work ethic in the same way, and it seems to be like kind of similar that it's I'm going to use this time. I'm going to use this time to like do all this stuff. But there's also like this mindset of like, well, it's also good just to kind of be a human in this weird moment in time, and maybe not like completely throw that to the wayside while you crank out hours and hours of productivity, says the guy that cranks out hours and hours of productivity himself. But I think it's something that honoring that, you know what I mean? And honoring this weird moment in time is almost kind of important, because with any luck, this will be like this weird, bizarre blip in modern history. With any luck.
With luck.
And or it's the beginning of the mundane apocalypse. Either way, one or the other. But I think as someone that's, relatively tireless, such as yourself, that has so many awesome projects and constantly is able to channel a lot of different things into a creative manner. And then I just wonder, like, is it a thing that, like, you feel you can turn the spigot on and off? Is it kind of just hit when it hits? Like, what's the mindset, COVID life versus regular life? Like, what's the mindset, man?
I don't know, man. It's weird. Like, it's that question's kind of like, hey, how was your weekend? You're like, dude,
I know.
in like ever, and so it's kind of weird. Like,
what's a weekend? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so we did kind of like ease into like this weird thing, because I remember working on this project, a recording that I don't know if it'll ever come out. It wasn't like a planned thing. It was kind of a last minute thing, but it was right when like you couldn't get hand sanitizer. And I remember being in the studio with my friend Nick, and he was like freaking out because he couldn't get hand sanitizer. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on, dude? And then like a week later, it was like, no more, like, you can't leave your house kind of shit,
Right, right, exactly. It isn't just toilet paper you can't get now. It's like no one's supposed to leave. Yeah.
But there was like, the little weird, and then like also too, it's like, I don't know, like my life's weird. And so I'm like, oh yeah, like now I'm in a pandemic. Like, that makes sense, I guess, like, I don't know. I mean,
why not? Yeah, why not?
Yeah, there's people eating bats and shit. Like, of course we're gonna have a fucking pandemic. I don't know. I think people. It's interesting, man. There's so many fucked up things happening. It like is shocking, and then I'm kind of like, well, there was a pandemic before, and like, it's kind of like looking at like I didn't live. Like, people are always. I mean, it's fucking crazy, the political administration that we're dealing with. But like, I think about shit like it must have been so insane to live through like the Kennedy assassination or like.
Right.
Or like Vietnam War, like that shit seems insane. So like I kind of feel like it's insane right now because we're in it, but in retrospect we'll kind of be like, yeah, well, that was like a pandemic, But with that being said, like there's a lot of like really insanely bad and sad things happening, like like 380,000 deaths in America, like, and that's kind of on the negligence of the administration we have. So those are things that I don't want to like joke about or take lightly, Yeah.
Well, and there's a balance to it. Like, you want to be able to, deal with life in the way that you can, and deal with humor as a coping mechanism, as well as just being humor. But it is, I mean, if I remember right, I think we're more COVID deaths than World War II now at this point. If I remember correctly, I think I heard that statistic day before yesterday, or something along those lines. And it's, it's an abstraction, especially when you're just, for the most part, at home, like looking at the same four walls, except for the internet. Like, it's easy to kind of like think about it not as an abstraction, but that's crazy. That's that's more than more than 9/11. That's more than like all these other things you think of as like these terrible things. And it's just because it didn't happen like all at the same time. Like, it doesn't make a difference. Like, it isn't like a historical realignment of our society. No, of course it should be.
Yeah. Well, there's also this thing that people are talking about, like fatigue, where it's like after a while, we're all kind of numb to it. We're like, oh yeah, like, I mean, because
Yeah.
I remember when we hit the 200,000 mark, and we're like, holy shit, and like we're about to hit the fucking 400,000 mark.
Yeah, and everyone's like, oh well, whatever.
I mean, and to me, I'm thinking like the craziest shit. My grandmother's 91. She got the virus and fucking survived. I was like, holy shit. But now it's like, well, my good friend Mark Waters has been in ICU for 16 days. Like, we gotta fucking get Mark out of this, like, so, I mean, I'm grateful and appreciative that, like, it hasn't hit, like, super close to home, but, like, I know it will. I'm like, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna happen. It's inevitable.
It's law of averages, right? So it's about, and it's just so crazy too that, of course, we live in this world that there's not even agreed upon set of facts about things. We're like, okay, no, I just don't think that any of that's real. Okay, well, in times you'll be like, well, you're a fucking idiot. Go fuck off. And like now it's like, oh no, like they have their own ecosystem of stuff that supports their worldview and allows them to act like basically total jerks to everyone. But it's been that way because decades, right? Decades of like building up to that. It's been like a slow drip.
I don't understand the like correlation between being a white nationalist and an asshole that doesn't think like QAnon, like, oh yeah, the pandemic's just here to fuck with Trump. It's like the whole damn planet is like, what an egotistical asshole to expect that. So it's weird because like I'll go to like during the summer there was like a lot of like BLM protests and like people fighting for social justice, and everybody that was like on the left were masked up. Everybody on the right not masked up. And dude, it's crazy. There was this like white nationalist march last weekend by the beach. Every fucking asshole that was there for the white nationalist march was without a mask, and all the people that counter protesters, the people that were to like reject that, like all had masks on. I'm like, what is going on with this shit, man? Like, it's just wild. I like when Trump got, all these fuckers in the administration got the virus. I mean, it was so hard for me to refrain from being like, so on social media, like, I fucking hope they die, because like,
right, I know it's hard not like, to, yeah. You don't want to be an asshole about it, but it's also like, God, that's like Shakespearean level of justice, right? I'm just like, oh, of course and then he gets it. It's like, oh my God, it's happening, but it didn't.
Not even one like player died, and that sucks. Like, that just sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. They're too busy getting like baby's blood pumped in from the back room or something. I don't know. Some treatment that no one else has, that's for sure.
From the pizza place or whatever.
Yeah, eating adrenochrome or,
yeah,
whatever. So, yeah, well, it's just, it's a wild time. That's what I'm here to say. It's a wild time. Anyway, that's all, folks. Now, it's, but the reason I bring it up is because it's not like you can sit here and ignore it. The stuff's happening around you. And I feel like, the best things of what I consider punk rock, however, not as a sound, but as like a life ethos, it doesn't involve being cloistered from everything. It involves being, hey, we're going to acknowledge that there's messed up stuff that's happening and we're going to deal with it in our own way. And I guess, it's just a very strange time to be creative too, because it kind of seems like on one hand, there's this, okay, everyone's bored, so everyone's going to like just make stuff and whatever. And like some of it's good, and that's cool. But then it's also like, nobody knows like when touring is going to happen again. So if you're an artist that is more than just a dilettante or something, like, well, what does that mean for your life? Well, it means you got this weird, like uncertain future, like Stephen King's The Mist, like hanging out in front of you. Like, what does that look like? Yeah. And I gotta wonder, for someone that like spends so much of his life in creative exploits, whether it's whether it's the bands, whether it's the label, like, how do you deal with like that uncertainty? How do you deal with like that that mist in the distance?
I mean, the only like sort of odd thing is that like I can't book a show and go play live, so that's like, and obviously like, this kind of stuff I do, like I'm not going to live stream like some shit because that's just weird. So like there is a bit of a void, and like some of my bandmates, like the guitar player for Dead Cross, like he's constantly like kind of freaking out about like not playing live, and I'm like, dude, I get it. Like, I mean, not like in a condescending way, but I'm like, I get it. Like, yeah, this is fucking weird. Like we can't can't even like conceivably like, talk about booking a show yet, so it's weird. But like, aside from that, it's like, well, I mean, we're still pushing forward and people are still trying to find other ways to be creative. I mean, even like the kind of weird live stream things, which I think are like cool for certain artists. They're getting a little bit more creative. I think people are kind of like figuring out or navigating like a new terrain, which, I mean, it's inevitable. I think, and you want to talk about punk, not like punk rock, but punk, like, I think it's like, it's kind of like we're all bred to sort of like roll with whatever we are dealing with, Oh, nuclear war. Okay, well, fuck, we're gonna do this. Yeah,
Throw in our hazmat suits and get in the van. Yeah.
but not to like, say like nuclear war is cool, but like think about all the rad and weird art that came out of like the threat of nuclear war.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm assuming that like the art and the creativity will just shift and go to another level of something, and we'll be able to it'll help us like adjust and I don't know now, like just, I don't know, ease the pain of life, I suppose, or at least push things forward in hopefully a progressive manner. So
So what's your take on doing like live stream stuff? I mean, because there's obviously, I think it's different if you're like, hey, I'm a person with an acoustic guitar who's singing songs of love. Okay, cool, but that's not like, how Dead Cross rolls. That's not how like a lot of like, there's certain things where the visceral experience of like being in a room and having like the volume and that give and take is such an important part of it. That's daunting.
I mean, I agree. So like Dead Cross did this like weird fucking promo, like this thing, like it was like a halftime PBR thing. It was super strange, like with chicken wings and shit. But we played to, like to no crowd, and it was like, it was only 3 songs, but it was, I watch it and I'm kind of like, I'm glad I'm not the singer of this band, because that's the worst fucking job. Like, like in that kind of music, like I just kind of like stood there and played bass and like, but I didn't require energy from the audience necessarily to get through it, and I didn't want to phone it in, but I was, and my action was like exactly equivalent to what it should have been for like, only like 10 people being there, so like, that's just the strange thing. Like, I don't think I could perform, especially as a singer, or even like with the Locust or something, like in front of nobody. It would just, well, maybe the Locust would, because we're kind of like stationary, it doesn't like, we don't need like stage diving and stuff, but regardless, to have the humans there makes an exchange of energy, exchange of we're communicating to each other. Like, these are things that are really, really vital, I think, for that kind of art. But I don't know. I'm not sure how. I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know. That's not even an answer. I don't know what that is. That's my blah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's messy, but everything about this is messy, right? So, and there is, I think that's often kind of downplayed when you think about people dealing with the pandemic and trying to, how they want to present their art, and just sort of assume that like, oh, we'll just throw up the iPhone and let's take some video. And it's like, well, not everyone wants to do that. And that's okay.
It's some of it seems a little bit lazy, and I don't mean that in any disrespect, because like, again, like I did this, I had like another talk earlier today with some friends, and I was talking about the Mets performance that they did. I don't know if you saw, but it was like really well shot with a bunch of angles and edited very well. And it had value to it. It didn't seem like, again, like I wasn't just like, here, check it out, like it was something, I think.
Oh shit! Portrait mode. My bad.
Yeah. But I mean, like, we don't all have that budget. I don't. Yeah. Most of my bands, or almost all bands, don't have that kind of budget or like backing. But I think that like there's a way to be creative. We have to invent that. We have to go like, instead of me just sitting on my phone and fucking going for it or whatever. There's got to be another level, or there's got to be something that we can do to it. And I could spew out some ideas, but I don't know if there would be. Like even like scripted like banter or like, I don't know, record an audience like talking shit, like, and so the song stops and then there's like, like a robot voice being like, that sounds stupid, or like something like make it like more interesting.
try it tuning your guitar next time, you know.
Well, the thing that I trip out on is a friend of mine. He's a producer. He also is a DJ, and he'll like do these DJ things out of his house and like get tips. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on, dude? Like, no offense, like that's cool that he's getting he's getting tips.
Yeah, nice work if you can get it. Sure, yeah.
But I'm like, dude, you just were at home like playing music through the internet, and you got like $60. That seems so fucked.
Yeah,
like,
doing stuff he'd probably do anyway.
I mean, it's cool that people like his music and what he's playing and stuff. But like, I'm trying to like, I just try to think like, Jesus, that's some fucking privileged shit, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's well, I mean, but it is something where, you know, there is that idea of, and you talked about like adaptability, right? Like saying adaptables, you know, and making things that work that fit the vision. I do wonder, do you mind talking about a little bit how Dead Cross gets started? I think you're creeping up at about the 5th year of that band, right? It was like end of 2015, if I remember correctly. Like near the end is where.
I don't think
is that right?
Fuck, maybe it is years. Yeah, I don't know. It may be 4. Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
So when it came together, so of course, and Dead Cross is your band, Michael Crane, Dave Lombardo. So you started off. It started recording first, right? The idea was it started as a recording project and then kind of developed into a live band.
Well, we were actually, me and Mike and Dave were recording with someone else for another person's album, and that ended up getting scrapped. But like while we were recording, Dave, his other band had kind of split up. It was called Film, and he said, "Hey, I have these shows. I need to put a band together. I don't know what to do." So, you know, Mike Crane was like, "Let's start a band. It's in 12 days. Well, let's start a band." You know, and they signed me up. Like, holy fuck! Like we have to write a lot of music or enough music to perform. And then that was kind of how it happened, you know. Which do you find
that you work well with like a deadline like that, where if you got like,
we did what we had to do, but in retrospect,
yeah,
I think back and I'm like, Jesus, like half of that album is really good, and half of it just kind of irks me, you know. I'm like, dude, what? I mean, and I give us all credit, like, fuck, you know, we didn't know what we were doing. Like, I feel like it took us. Until our second album, which we're still actually recording vocals for, until we could like find our like the real skin of the band. You know, it was kind of like, oh, now we're not like, you know, just throwing shit out there. You know, like we kind of like knew what we wanted to do.
Throwing it against a wall and see what sticks. I mean, I had a friend who had a theory that a band has to play like 10 shows before they like really find their voice. And I think about that like a lot, even like all these years later. And I don't know if it's necessarily true, but when you're coming in, no matter, you know, how much the affinity you have with the players or no matter how accomplished the musicians are, there's always that kind of like, well, we're creating this vacuum here and okay, I'm going to do this. All right, I'm going to do this. Okay. That sounds cool. Let's put it together that way. But it's interesting in the fact that most bands that have, you know, notable members from other bands tend to be less than the sum of their parts, but it has a pretty unique and authentic voice. And it doesn't sound like it's like one of the things that there's a word for that I'm not going to say. And I guess I wonder like how much of that was, hey, let's try to do some, you know, some accused deep wound stuff and just see what happens. And how much of it was like, let's do this crazy thing. Like how much of it was intent and how much of it was just like, hey, let's see what happens when we put, you know, these elements together in the room.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird to like have a starting point, you know, I mean, even like not to switch bands, but like originally when the Locust started, our whole goal was to sound like Crossed Out. And I think we completely avoided that. And that's cool. You know, I mean, I love Crossed Out and I'm glad that we didn't sound like that, but that was the objective. And so like, I think, you know, with Dead Cross, I mean, we literally didn't even have enough time to think, like, what do we want to be like? You know, remember?
Right, yeah, totally. Like, you didn't even have the time to even, like, second guess it. Sure, that makes sense.
Well, and another thing is like, Dave and Mike were rehearsing in L.A., and I had to come back to work, you know, like, in between, like, sessions when we were starting to, like, write the set for the live set for the shows. And I remember, like, driving up there and being like, fuck, I hope they didn't write some fucking bullshit or like whatever. not that they would do that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like,
but
like,
you're not there. You're not in the room. Exactly. It's
but
like
you go,
you,
like any direction, you know, and you know, I'll get there and of course I'm like, oh, this is awesome, you know, but then it's like you kind of get there and your perspective's strange. Like you can't really sit on it, you know, you can't sit on it and go like, fuck, is this cool enough or is this brutal? Or like, because like I think like some of the music on the Dead Cross first album is like too punky, you know, and like I feel like the objective was to be like super fucked and like brutal and nasty and like, I mean, it's called Dead Cross, like it should be like fucking, you know, like sonically scary and some of it's just like, you know, just kind of punky or not like menacing enough. And I'm like, we nailed it on this song and then we shit the bed on this other one. But I don't want to like be a dick. And, you know, I think I need to give ourselves some credit because we were like under the gun. And then we literally were like played 2 or 3 shows. And then we're like in the studio recording. It's like, there was.
Right. Yeah. It's wild. And of course, for people that are not well versed in the history of the band, Gabe was originally involved in it. Gabe served for the Locust, and that's also just, especially with something that's new, when you change an element out so early on before you've like really found the voice. In a way, it's almost easier for the new member, but harder for the people that already are there. How did that all come to pass? I mean, that was, it seemed like it was kind of locked and loaded with Gabe, and then lo and behold, enter the patent.
I think like. It was a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, the 3 of us were recording and we were like, let's put this band together. Who do we want to get to sing? And, you know, we kind of suggested a couple people and Gabe was one of them. And Dave really loves Gabe as a person and as a drummer. And so it kind of seemed, and like, you know, Mike Crane and I worked with Gabe, who was also previously in Retox with both of us. So we're like, all right, Gabe, you know, and the thing is like, it was supposed to be 3 shows and that was it, you know? So we're like, we're going to do this 3 shows. And then it was like, oh shit. 9 shows and a fucking heavy metal cruise and all this weird shit. And we're like, what the fuck? And we're an album, you know? And so I think like we kind of like got in it pretty deep, like right away. And Gabe, I think was like, oh fuck, actually I can't like do this band full time. So like, it was kind of a weird scenario and kind of a bummer because he quit about like 3/4 of the way through of recording the album. So like,
it's rough.
But with that being said, like it's probably better that he quit and we scrapped all the vocals and started with a new singer than like release an album with one singer and then shifted and tried to do it with another singer. Like, you know, I think it worked out okay.
Like Black Flag pulled that off, but you know, for few bands does it work that way really.
But even like with Black Flag doing that, it still seems like such a strange thing to
it's freaking weird. It is very, especially, and I hate to say it, in a way that isn't as weird when you like have a different bass player or a different guitar player, in a way that's like, wait, what? Like what? I don't know what it is.
The voice and the lyrics is very, very important to most people, especially if you're not a musician. That's the first thing you identify with. So I see that for sure. And then, you know, like again, like talking about like finding our skin, it was like writing a second record with Patton involved was like, oh, hey, we have the ability to like really hone in on vocal harmony and melody that can like accommodate with a riff or something. It was like another level, you know. But with that being said, like the stuff that Gabe tracked was just like next level vocals for that guy. I mean, he sang in like Rat's Eyes and you know, a few projects, but like it was like hearing that, I was like, oh, this is like a new career for that guy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's a talented dude, like for sure, and it's kind of a drag that, you know, he couldn't have been more involved with it, but it's you know what, he is a talent, and I feel like something where only true heads will know, you know what I mean? Like you have to be kind of a music nerd to realize that, but yeah, Gabe's a badass, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Patton's okay too. Don't get me wrong, but he's okay. It's all right. It's okay, that Patton guy. He's got a future in this business.
We played one show in San Diego where we did the same song twice, once with Gabe and then once with Patton, and it was such a trip. Like,
oh really? Wow.
It was a trip to do it in a row, like one in a row, like this song, and then do it again with the other singer. It was so crazy. I don't know. Like, I wish I could have watched it and not played it. You know?
Yeah. Because it's almost like it probably brings out different things in everybody's performance, and yeah, wow, that's wild. That would be crazy. Gabe was you were in Holy Molar with Gabe too, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Right?
Like guitar band. Like what the fuck?
Yeah. Good band. Like kind of often, I don't know, forgotten about, but like really not ballyhooed as much as some of the other ones. Interesting band. Like I remember being very, very impressed when I saw Holy Molar play.
The whole band was a joke. It was supposed to be a joke. I mean, it was like, let's do all the stupid shit none of us can do in our other bands, and it was fucking stupid.
Well, because you did that. There was that X Models split, which that was another band that like I thought was like. So you know, amazing songs, and like the presentation is like, wow, this is like, I don't think this has actually been done before, and I'm fucking here for it.
Yeah.
But wild band, and that was another group of like awesome collaborators and you know doing cool stuff. Was it conceived as like a limited edition thing? I mean, is around like 4-5 years, something along those lines. Like it was. Around for a bit. I saw you guys a couple times. I know that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is never like mapped out. You know, it's like, hey, let's do this thing and like see what happens. And then, oh, you're moving, or you hate me, or like whatever. And so then we just kind of stop. You know,
you're moving and you hate me.
Well, yeah, I'm moving and that happened too. But I mean, I don't think there was ever like a game plan, and I think that's kind of cool. Like where like it does fit into the traditional like. Term of like a project. It wasn't really a band. It was kind of a project, you know?
Yeah. No, I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah. I guess like looking at it just objectively and trying to like figure out what it was, it wasn't ever supposed to be like a real band, I guess.
Now, talk to me. We've talked this long and we barely even touched the Locust, which I think is awesome and also kind of hilarious. But for me, the Locust, I mean, is a couple things. Not the least of which is I appreciate the world building of what the Locust did, kind of making its own everything around the band, but also the idea of like, hey, let's have Moogs with our blast beats. You know, let's bring the Devo into this. Like, let's bring, and then also. Hey, what are they doing now? Oh, they got, you know, these uniforms with these weird masks on. I'm like, wow, how can they see what they're playing? You know, like just this, the presentation being, I don't want to say it wasn't serious, but kind of like away from the idea of taking itself too seriously. Like especially in the hardcore world, especially, I feel like there's a lot of like, no, this is serious business. We're doing serious music. And it's not like the music was intense as hell. And you guys clearly put a lot of thought and energy into it. But the presentation kind of brought like, I don't know, a more fun element to it. And was that like something that just evolved? Was that part of the original conceit of making the Locust, like post Swing Kids and that?
That's a really fucking great question. And when you were saying all that, I was like, oh, like there's this thing I was going to comment on. So it's interesting because I think, so I can't speak for the rest of the original lineup, but when the band started, I had been in Struggle and Swing Kids, and they were both very, very fucking serious and like taking ourselves serious and almost, well, and luckily like we were serious as a band, and then our real lives were like as serious. Like it was like, like working with Jose Palafox was like, no, you cannot have fun. Like we're communists. We fucking hate the government. Like everything was like super political, and I'm grateful for that, especially as a 16-year-old, because it like kept me. I like got to miss out on like all the stupid shit of being a kid, and was like, let's fucking overthrow the government, or like let's like fight Nazis. Like those are like way better things than like figuring out what to do on like a weekend and like like getting someone to buy us beer. So like,
right, yeah.
So with the Locust though, like when we started, again, it was like the idea was to sound like Crossed Out, and so we had a couple slight lineup changes right away, recording, and then people kind of not wanting to do certain things. And one of the singers that we had on the first record we did, which is the split with Man is the Bastard, Dave, he had a Moog synthesizer, and like only he like brought it to rehearsal and like only would play it in between songs. And we're like, dude, you got to play that on the fucking record, you know? And he like wouldn't do it. And so he quit, not because of that. Him and the original singer, they were both two singers and a guitar player. They quit. Dylan and Dave quit because like they were moving or something. They moved to like, they were kind of like down for like the hippie stuff, and they like went to like, I don't know, Harvest Weed or something. And so they split. And so Bobby and I were like, we're getting a fucking keyboard player. Like, that's it. Like, and also at the time, you know, we were like, we both were like heavily influenced by like DEVO and stuff. But also at the time there was shit like the VSS and, you know, like weird kind of like synth based stuff happening. So I was like, oh shit. Hey, your audio cut out there. That whole sentence.
I was saying Brainiac, Six Finger Satellite.
Dude, Six Finger Satellite, exactly.
Yeah.
So we were like, let's get a synth and a synth player. And so it was like this incestuous thing in San Diego. Jimmy Lavelle, who was also in the Crimson Curse, and now he's kind of more known for Album Leaf.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was a guitar player, but we're like, he knew how to play piano and stuff. We're like, dude, will you play keyboards in our band? And he had this like kind of shitty, like pretty shitty keyboard. I don't know what it was, but it was bad. And so Bobby and I found one of those realistic, well, like so Moog made these like synthesizers that were available at Radio Shack, and they were like pretty small and like kind of like not that great, but they were perfect for what we wanted to do. And we found one.
Realistic is that the name of the brand? Yeah, I remember those.
So they were like available, like I think like available through Radio Shack. So anyhow, we found one for $75 at a pawn shop, and we bought it and said, Jimmy, play this. So Jimmy would play like sort of the melody on the regular keyboard, and they had a little I don't know, like a joystick to bend it, like, you know, like do all this kind of weird shit. But it was the Moog with the random shit,
yeah,
like,
the arpeggiation.
Just like
arpeggiation, yeah,
just like nonsense, like let's add to the fucking garbage noise, you know. And so, but we were like, this is it, and it made it kind of have this like weird science fiction vibe, and brought the band out of like being anywhere near hardcore or anywhere like Crossed Out. There's no fucking way we could be like Crossed Out with a keyboard player. and that was it, you know. So that was like the first kind of like nuance that we discovered. And also too, like we went on tour to Europe pretty quick, like after we had started as the band. And I remember like people just fucking hated us because we had a keyboard player, and then it was wild, you know. And I remember I remember setting up at the show in England, and the one of the guys from Doom was there, and I was like, oh my god,
wow.
The guy from Doom, and he just was like nonstop heckling us while we're setting up, and I was like, motherfucker, like this is it, it's on, dude, like, you know. And so that made us play like even more brutal, because we're like, we gotta fuck this guy up, you know, just making fun of the way we look, the fact that we had keyboards, and just because we don't like have dreadlocks and stink and aren't, you know, like, I don't know, it was weird, you know. But
you aren't wearing a black hoodie and don't have a beard. How dare you? Yeah.
So that was like
says the guy wearing a black hoodie. I guess I just realized. Sorry.
But that was the first like real thing where we're like, oh shit, people like are totally not into this. This is rad, you know, and kind of pushed us.
Well, I appreciate that about you, because as a live band, it was a fearsome presentation, but also there was this complete embrace of absurdity as well, but not letting that take away from the the direct action, if you will, of the intensity. And I mean, I was at shows where I saw people get super pissed off. I'm like, what are you pissed? It's a band playing. What are you pissed off about? But they would get like so worked up, and like I was like, well,
what were they mad about?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know to this day. But that was so amazing, is that I can't, you know, I tell, you know, folks that are older than myself, they were like the first wave of punk rock of like really insane reactions like that. But I'm like, I don't know if I've seen that much. But I saw it a couple times with you guys. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I've never seen like people get like worked up this way. Because then also there'd be like people dancing too, and there'd be people like angry for reasons I don't know. And the whole thing, it seemed like as a live presentation, like it'd be very easy to have a shtick band, like a band that's like just does the shtick, just does like the costumes and like whatever, the confrontational wordplay, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is the songs were there, the music was there. And I think that's something where, I mean, it's a weird kind of line to walk. Like, you know, one step more in one direction or one step more in the other direction, it just doesn't work. And I every time I say, hey guys, you landed it.
Well, I think like a lot of it was, you know, we kind of set out like I think our influences as far as like shifting and going towards like weirdo, like new wave stuff was like, you know, DEVO, Gary Newman, Residents, even going back like, but this, so like we're talking pre like Uniform days, but even like the Uniform idea was kind of like Beatles-ish. Like we were already kind of like taking cues from all these different like elements, and I think that's like an important thing. But for us, it was like, and especially for me, like coming from Struggle and Swing Kids, like I was really, I really thought hardcore was fucking stupid, you know, and I thought it was stupid. Well, and punk rock too. I think like
yeah.
So like with punk rock, it was like the nihilistic shit that I was like, this is really dumb. And then with hardcore, it was the macho shit, and I was like, this is also really dumb. So like, you know, I felt like the Locust, like sort of morphed into this like, I don't want to say like intellectual, like I don't want to sound like I'm sucking my own dick, but like we were everything was like, but it was like everything came from an intellectual like perspective, you know. It wasn't just like, we weren't just like doing weird to be weird for like the sake of weird. It was like, no, let's do this because it's gonna like challenge the audience or like something, or piss these people off. Like, let's do this thing that will like create a reaction. There was always like an underlying reason for something to happen, you know. And I think a lot of it was the opposition of like macho hardcore and like nihilistic punk rock, and we were like, fuck these people. And at that with saying like fuck these people, it like gave, I think, a part of the audience that were like the weirdos and the freaks, like almost like a voice or like power or like a community where like you know, like, because then it took us a minute, but after a while when we started touring with like Airborne Radar and like, you know,
just about to bring that up, yeah.
But it took like Enlightening Bolt, you're like, oh shit, like okay, like let's, because we did some fucking kind of stupid tours, you know, like that were just like
Andrew WK.
That was terrible. I mean, Andrew was cool, but it was terrible. It was terrible to play to his audience, and it was I don't know. There was a lot of like little things to kind of like ingest, but we also like tested things out because like we were good, you know, we're good friends with everybody in Rock from the Crypt, and they wanted us to tour with them, and we were like, oh yeah, this is totally a bad idea. Let's do that, and we did, and like people were bummed, you know.
Were there some pompadour bum outs in the audience?
Yeah,
I love Rocket, to be clear.
So do I. And the thing is, like, they loved us bumming all their bands out, and I was like,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But it took a minute to like go like, oh, because then I remember we toured with Phantomos and Melt Banana and stuff, and we're like, oh, this is easy now. Like, there's all the weirdos. There's not like one asshole out there, you know. So I mean, I think it just took a minute to kind of find the nuance of like how to work with people, because there also was like, I think you had mentioned like the banter and stuff, or like the weird like it was like a thing to go through the Locust and talk shit to us, and it got really tiring to constantly just berate the audience that were like dicks. And you know that it was like usually there was like 3 assholes, and 2 of them were like terrible with their heckles. One of them you're like, oh, that wasn't too bad. But for the most part, like every night you were like, man, this is fucking stupid, and like it's all about the music. So like it forced us to rewrite our music to where like we would start the set and we would end the set, and there was no time for dialogue. We would not stop playing, and we would even write music that had, with the complexities and the stuff that like especially Gabe had to play on drums, where like there were breaks for him to rest, so we could still be playing and he could kind of have a bit of a chance to catch his breath to continue on, in order to just eliminate any dialogue with the audience. And that was like that, and the audience created, like, in a sense, the audience caused us to write Safety Second Body Last, which was like a 10-minute piece where there's like no time to have a conversation with us. And I think that's how it should be, because I don't really think that that's the place to converse with a band, you know, like while they're
It's not the place to work on your tight five, man. Come on, I mean,
like, it's not really old, like hearing people say like, play the one the drummer knows, or play the fast one, play Freebird. It was like, dude, this is so bad, man. Like, occasionally there'd be a good heckle. I can't think of one right now, but I would say like, all right, finally, like there's a good one.
Yeah,
but
gold star.
Those are like super rare, you know.
So something that I thought was, and you alluded to it, playing with Airborne Radar, but the Oops tour, the one that was with Lightning Bolt and Airborne Radar. I think Pink and Brown played the Bay Area shows, which I saw the Oakland and the SF show. I know, I think it was Gilman. It was Gilman and SF, and it was something where when that tour got put together and got booked, I was like, wow, that's awesome, because all these bands are pretty rad. They don't all sound like each other, but they have a similar-ish approach to kind of how they deal with presenting their art. And it made sense. And it was something like, wow. And I'm like, and you know, when I looked into it, I assumed for some reason that it was just like a West Coast thing. I was like, oh no, they're doing this. They're like, they're taking this, they're taking this show on the road. And, you know, can you tell me a little bit about how that all came together? Like some of the experiences from it, you know, was that a good experience? Because it seemed rad from the two shows I saw.
Yeah, so right before that, I think, you know, we had done a lot of touring with Jenny Piccolo, and so it was kind of, we already like in our mind like had like thought about the idea of like kind of like coupling up with another band, obviously like a regular tour, but like on the Jenny Piccolo tours, we would end up playing with like Reversal of Man and Los Crudos, Milai, and it was kind of like, so you're kind of like, oh shit, there's like 5 ripping bands on this bill. This is nice, you know, and there was like. And when you had that ability to like have your family as the lineup, the audience also was your family. Everyone there is on the same fucking page, and it was really, really cool. And so like the Oops thing was presented in sort of a similar vibe by Brian Peterson, an agent and a good friend of ours who used to book at the Fireside Bowl in Chicago.
Fireside Bowl, yeah, he's a Mr. MP shows Chicago show guy.
Well, yeah, and so also he was in Milai and played a bunch of shows. And I think, so he had this idea, like, let's put this thing together. And, you know, it was the Locust, Airborne Radar, Lightning Bolt, and then there was 2 regional bands, depending on where we were, that would open. And so every night it was 5 bands. And so if you looked at the whole list of bands that played that, I mean, you have Rob Roz, Quintron, Orthrealm, man, it's just, you know, like.
Yeah, I remember it was insane. And I remember being sad that, like, there were other, you know, like, oh, so-and-so's playing that, like, that'd be so rad to see them play too, you know, like, just in a good way.
Gut Hustle, like, dude, it was crazy. And it was like, it was, every night was like a treat, you know, and it was like, and even, I mean, also too, like, Airborne Radar is probably one of my favorite bands of the time.
They're so good, yeah.
But so like every night was like a treat to kind of see the whole thing happen. You're like, oh my gosh, we get to see, you know, Erase Errata and Blood Brothers, and then Lightning Bolt, and then Airborne Radar, like, and then we get to play. Like, it was super wild and crazy to like think about that. And so that really changed a lot of things. And I think, you know, even like we ended up becoming friends. Like, I think like ended up becoming friends with people like the Flying Lutenbachers and Neon Hunk and like all this like just strange, like My Name is Rarar, like all the weirdest shit you could possibly imagine. And it was crazy because I think Lightning Bolt and Airborne Radar had like a bit of tension where they were like kind of competitive with each other, which was odd. But for us, it wasn't like competitiveness. It was like, holy shit, we just saw 4 of the most amazing things. Now we gotta be amazing, you know, or we gotta do our best. And so it was really
nobody wants to be the weak link in the chain, right?
Yeah, but the crazy thing is, like, you know, after like watching, you know, Get Hustle and Blood Brothers and then Airborne Radar and Lightning Bolt, you're like, we don't sound anything like any of those bands, but fucking A, that was like the stellar shit that just happened. Like, we're gonna have to just jump on board and like try to do our best. And like it was a crazy thing. And I think it affected a lot of people, and maybe it like inspired people to do things afterwards, you know. And we tried to kind of keep that mindset. Like, I think like a few tours later, we did one. Like one of our last like real full tours was with Cattle Decapitation and Daughters and Bastard Noise, and so that was like the idea. Like,
it's another one. Everyone's, it's like all killer bill. Like everyone's a contract killer. Awesome.
And everybody was completely different. And I think that was like a really interesting thing where like, I mean, and not to like kind of throw it into like a giant pond or whatever, but like that's like kind of the concept behind 3-1-G to me, because a lot of people say like, oh, that's got like a 3-1-G sound, and it's like, what the fuck does that even mean? Because again, like, you know, had all those bands except without, you know, like without Lightning Bolt, like, but all those other bands were part of that. So it's like, you know, you can't really compare the two necessarily, but they make total sense together. And I think it's like an anti-music industry kind of thing without being anti-music industry.
Well, and that's what was so striking about it, is that it was, you know, quite the expression of creativity and community without necessarily being focused on a profit motive. And it's just kind of, not to say that everyone was, you know, like whatever, hey, we're here for the commune or anything, but just like not out to like make a buck on all of it. It was just like, wow, like all these bands are like rad and intense as hell, and they do their own thing, but it all like fits very well together. Like, you know, like, I don't know, like a Russian dinner or something has 17 courses, because they do.
Well, that's interesting though, because if you think about like modern times, like if you were to listen to a Spotify playlist, there's no fucking way it could provide that.
Right.
Which,
Good luck.
Which is crazy. Because think about it, like if you were like, I guarantee you, like you could probably listen to like a daughter's Spotify playlist, and you're never ever once gonna hear Quintron ever.
No, you're gonna hear Daughters Junior and Daughters Junior 2, you know, Daughters Junior UK is what you're gonna hear, because everybody's kind of holding on to their genre, as the Les Savvy Fab song goes.
Yeah,
and I don't necessarily know if that's, I don't know, that's Greg Pachota from Dillinger Escape Plan went on a long impassioned I'll say piece about it, but rant also works, and you know, I'm hard pressed to disagree. It is something where it's like, it's weird that there's like a corporate thing that is sort of deciding that, like, oh, you like this, then these are the things that you will also listen to.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we still have freedom of choice, but you know.
But I mean, Dillinger is a great example, because they were so hugely successful, and as much, and I love that band, and this is no disrespect,
Me too.
But a lot of that music is like not listenable to normal people, and I think that's and I appreciate that, where you're like,
yeah, it's for the people it's for, and that's rad, that's great, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And I love that band too, especially because we did a tour with them, which was also sort of, on our side, sort of oops-ish. Like, they asked us to tour together, and they said, okay, each band's gonna pick an opener, and they picked this band, Your Enemy's Friends, to be the opener. But we picked we did regional, so we had Regular Brutes, and we had Orthrealm.
Brutes, yeah.
And maybe we just had Regular Brutes and Orthrealm, but we might have had another. Oh, Das Oath. So we kind of like grabbed other bands, but it was cool to tour with Dillinger, because they were so insane in their performance, like physically insane, that it made us sort of like, I don't know, like, because we didn't have we don't have like a singer, and we're all like kind of like, we're stuck at our pedal boards and stuff. And
you're bearing down on your thing, you're doing your stuff, you know.
But it made us like, obviously we had uniforms at that point, but it made us like react and like almost like DEVO-ish or something. Like we had like the movements and like the way we kind of like our performance was like, oh, okay, so they're doing like this crazy gymnastic shit, you know, like fucking leaping and stuff. Like, I can't leap because I can't leave all these pedals right here. So I'm gonna
right. Yeah. It's a logistical difficulty.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you're able to present the music in a manner, and it's contrast, right? Like, bands playing together, it doesn't have to be like affinity; it can be contrast. Like,
but it's also influence, because I love when people are like, "What are your influences?" and they expect you to say a bunch of shit. I mean, my influences are all kinds of things, but one of the Locust influences was touring with Dillinger Escape Plan, and it wasn't really necessarily a musical influence, because I don't think we sound anything like each other. It was an aesthetical influence that wasn't like. It wasn't like, I don't know, it was out of like respect. Like, fuck, you've like mastered that craft. We're gonna master some other fucking shit over here, and like, coexist in a world, and coexist, and almost like elitist, you know, like like both of us do our own thing and we love each other, but most of our fans, or at least a lot of the Dillinger fans, were fucking like super bummed on the Locust, which we also like appreciate, you know? Like,
yeah. It's better than no reaction, right? I mean,
that's the best. Yeah, totally. When you get no reaction, you failed, I think.
Yeah. Where it's like, what? You're not even pissed off? Come on, man.
Yeah,
that's right. No, but I think you're onto something, because Dillinger was like a band that owned what they did. They masters of their craft, right? And it's always nice to kind of be a fellow traveler or someone and it's always inspiring for that. Even if you're not like, I want to do that. It's like, no, that's cool how you do that and how you own that. And like, you can find some kind of comfort and some joy in that, really. And that's, I think that's really interesting. And it is something where, like, I don't think I ever saw you guys with Dillinger, but like, I was like, that's a great double bill. That's awesome. I do want to.
Well, I think, like, speaking of Dillinger, like, one of the like most impressive things I've ever seen musically ever is that footage of them playing at the Virgin Megastore.
Oh yeah.
When Greg runs over all the way to the elevator on top of people, and like, for one, like, I don't want to run on top of people's heads, and I don't think I'd ever be in a band where people would let me do that. But like, that in itself is such great art, like. It's not musical. There was no music. There was no musical element in running on people's heads. But it was art and it was performance. And I was like, that is like the best next level shit at that time. I was like, fucking A, man. And not that I was ever gonna try to do that. And I think that's like the best art, where you like see something and you're just like, oh, like level of intensity. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go try to do this other thing,
Right. I love that so much. I'm gonna not try to do it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it's there's a band I know whose slogan was, "We love Void so much we decided not to sound like them," which I always thought that was that was really good. Want to talk a little bit about our mutual friend I haven't talked to in a while, Virgil Porter, and your Burn My Eye appearance with the incredible Extreme Elvis.
Yeah, I wish that was like more. I don't know. Is it online? I don't know if it's all online.
It's on, but it's like it's it's like somebody just ripped the DVD and put like the SD rip up. Like, it's kind of looks not great, but Burn My Eye was a public access show about music, and it was brilliant, and it was great. And there's a very great Locust episode where you're ostensibly interviewed by Extreme Elvis. This is the setup. Extreme Elvis being a San Francisco personality, performer, and musician that basically every part of what he did was part of the show, but a very thoughtful dude that, honestly, like, if you just were like, oh, it's a big Elvis impersonator who shits on the stage or whatever, like, it's okay, you weren't really paying attention then, because the whole point is to be transgressive. And the interview itself is at times kind of uncomfortable and like aggressive almost. Yeah. But then the point is the whole thing as a piece. And I think that's so interesting, because at the time where the Locust was at, there's a lot of people that had similar-ish complaints about what you guys were doing. They weren't really articulating anything more than just like, quibbling and bitching. But the Extreme Elvis thing is so great, because first of all, it's Extreme Elvis and the Locust, so we'll just stop there. But like, did you know, how much of the setup did you get from Virgil with it? How much did you know about it ahead of time, and how was that experience?
0.
Good old Virgil Porter.
Okay, so like, we knew Virgil pretty well, and he was like, "Oh, I want to do this. We're gonna film it. And we're gonna do the interview." And we're like, "Okay, Extreme Elvis. Okay, that's an interesting shtick." And he's basically like Gigi Allen, but Elvis. We're like, okay, cool. So like, we didn't really know a whole lot. And before the interview even happened, I remember Ray Serrata played the show, and I remember him like sort of berating them in like a really fucked up, like, sexist way, like all this kind of like crazy shit, like, but like not it's hard to explain. Like, it wasn't enough to be like, fuck that guy, we were just kind of like, well, that's kind of a piece of shit, huh? So then like, and then he comes into the the interview in our dressing room and is acting like a fuckhead, And we're like, wow, this is wild, dude. And he's coming at us, you know. And okay, so he's coming at us and
physically as well as questioningly. Like, I mean, like in some cases, like he's being like, you know, transgressing physical space too, right?
yeah, but we were pretty open to it because he came at us like really aggressively and like combative, you know. And we're like, you're on Epitaph, you're sellouts, like, you know, like, and but he had a delivery and he had like all this like paperwork with like stuff. I remember like for one,
notes,
everybody in the Locust aside from me was fucking wasted. So that like didn't really help because he was getting nowhere with anybody except me. And I'm like, you know, this bitter fucking asshole, like sober dude. I'm like, not like sober, but like, you know, I wasn't like fucked up. And I was like looking at like Joey and Gabe, like completely wasted and not like responding to him. And so he kept like coming at me because I was the one that was responding. And I'm like, motherfucker,
right.
Like this shit's getting like annoying, you know. And it got like pretty bad where like we were throwing shit at him. And at one point we were trying to get him locked out of the room because we were like, get this fucking interview is over, dude. This is like not rad at all, you know. And I remember Joey peeing on him, and that was like too far, you know. And it was fucking crazy because we ended up like getting him out of the dressing room and like locking the door and then being like, God, I fucking hope that guy leaves. What a mess, you know, and like whatever. And so Virgil was like, sorry, and we're just like still had no idea. So like we waited a while and I figured, okay, you know, like we gotta load out. Like everyone, like the people at the Great American Music Hall, they're like, you know, you gotta load out. Like what the fuck? And you know, I'm like, dude, everyone's wasted and we just got this argument with this fat guy and like this is bad. And so like I remember like going out of the dressing room and going upstairs and he's sitting there and he's like, that was a fucking excellent performance. Thank you. And I was like, whoa, dude, what the hell? Like, and he was like, great, really good performance. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm confused. You know, and I was like, wait a minute. Whoa. And I was like, dude, you're on the level. And he's like, yeah. I was like, holy shit, I thought you were just a fuckhead the whole time. And he's like, perfect. And it was like, he was the most brilliant human being. I genuinely was like, I love this guy so much. I think he was great. We actually did another performance with him at Gilman that was like questionable, like super questionable because did you happen to see that?
I must have because I remember it, but I don't really remember what happened at there. Well, I mean, I saw you guys 2 times at Gilman. I saw I think that show and I saw the Oops Store. It's the only times I saw you at Gilman.
Well, I
don't remember what happened. What did he do? Because I saw Extreme Elvis a lot, man. I gotta admit, like it's amazing. And every performance is amazing, but some of it kind of runs together. Where I'm like, was the chicken on that show or was it, you know?
It was like, hey, you wanna? He's like, you know, we were friends at that point. He's like, oh, come out to the show. I'm like, cool. You wanna like do like an intro or like a piece, you know, like do a piece before we play? And he's like, sure. No, like conversation or whatever. So he comes out, and we're all set up and ready to go. So he comes out with the mic, and he like, first of all, he just berates the audience, like just tears them apart, tears apart Gilman, like just
right,
fucked up offensive shit to like. You know, like literal like kids. Like,
mommy and daddy dropped off their 14-year-old at the Gilman. Yeah.
And then if there's anyone that looks remotely old there, he's calling them an undercover cop and he's like saying all this shit. And then he starts talking shit about Epitaph and about how he signed to Epitaph. It was like right after Plague Soundscape. So he's like, well, you know, like if your fans aren't gonna fucking eat shit, you gotta eat shit. And he like, oh no, okay, so I fucked it up. So he's like drops his drawers and he's like.
Now I remember it, by the way. Yeah.
He's like, he like has this adult diaper on, and he's like, everyone, you know, when you signed Epitaph, you're fucking eating shit, like, you know, like whatever, like, and he like pulls this diaper off. It's covered in shit, and I'm like, what in the actual fuck? And so I'm standing there like taking cues from the like Dillinger shift, where I'm like, all right, I'm a robot, and like. And there's like a gigantic Elvis guy with this diaper coming towards my face.
With a full load. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I'm just trying not to, you know, I'm trying like not to respond. Like that was our whole thing. And he's like coming up and he's like, and then he's like, all right, well if you're, you know, and I like moved just a little bit. I was like, oh, this is bad, you know. And I remember like kind of just making eye contact with him, and I guess he could see through my my mask that I was like serious, like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? And then he said, all right, if you're not gonna eat shit, your fans are gonna eat shit. And he like tosses this diaper full of shit into the crowd. So then I'm thinking like, okay, there's a dude with his fucking crazy dick, micro dick, and a diaper full of shit, and then we just like bust into song, and like, I don't know what happened. I don't know where he went. The song happened, you know, stage dives and like everything kind of happened, and we're just like, cool. And then at the end of the set, you know, when we were done and loading out, I'm like, dude, that was kind of fucked up. And he's like, it was chocolate, man. He's like, I wouldn't really like try to rub shit in anybody's face. And I was like, holy crap, dude. I was like, I thought that was like really like diarrhea or, you know, whatever. And so he's a brilliant man.
It speaks to his brilliance that I had to hear some of the details before I actually remembered that performance, because it was like that every night with him. It was I think one of my favorite Extreme Elvis shows was he played the Curve Bar by the ballpark, which is like, you know, it was a sports bar that Matt Shapiro decided to like, hey, let's let all the deviants and weirdos in to like do like weird shows here and like bum out the people after the game. And he was singing Suspicious Minds. And at this point, he was completely naked and taking the mic around the room. And there was just a guy that was, you know, full on baseball wearing, baseball fan bro, that was just 7 sheets to the wind. And in the denouement of the song of Suspicious Minds, he just started peeing. And and he was by this guy, and this guy he was like had his back turned to the stage. And he just kind of slowly turns and like has this look of like drunken confusion that suddenly like turned to abject horror, that turned to revulsion and then confusion again. And it was one of the most amazing things I ever saw. And I'm not super proud of myself. I just busted up laughing because I was like 5 feet from this guy. I'm like, fucking amazing. Yeah. And also, by the way, he nailed Suspicious Minds. Like it was a brilliant performance. Like it was, and this is while it's happening. And like maybe 3 other people like saw it, but like, and I'm pretty sure that dude got his shoes pissed on too. But you know, whatever. That's stuff happens when you party naked, literally.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the Burn My Eye performance. I believe it's on YouTube. It's, you know, compared to like everyone's got a freaking movie studio in their pockets these days, you know, footage wise. But I think it's still worth a watch. I saw it not that long ago and was very entertained by it. I think it's one of the best episodes. Oh, man. So talk to me a little bit about the Cecil B. Demented thing.
Okay, well, it's John Waters, and that's awesome.
Okay, you said John Waters. That's first song. You say yes, right? I mean, that's kind of how I would look at it. Anyway.
Yeah. There was this punk rock comedian named Isaac Ramos, and his friend worked for John Waters. And so I guess his friend showed our record to John, and at some point, you know, we got like hit up by someone. They're like, we want to license music for the movie, and we're like, whatever you want, you know. And so they licensed 2 songs from our self-titled album, and then that was it. And then yeah, that was it. I mean, we became friends after that in a kind of an odd way, or a funny way, because we had no like direct interactions with John Waters. You know, aside from like, I don't know, like a manager or like a label, or I don't know who it was, but it like we didn't even touch it, you know, like and so he was performing in LA, and Joey and I went to go see if we could get in, and it was sold out. And the crazy thing is, at the El Rey Theater across the street is a Staples office supply, and they sold these giant rolls of like raffle tickets, and that's what they used for the guest list tickets. Okay. So on the guest list, they gave me this little red raffle ticket. Yeah,
like the little like keep this ticket thing. Yeah.
So for $1.98, we bought a whole reel, and then we all got in to go see John.
That's good. It's punk rock ingenuity. That's good.
Yeah, it was like, how else are we going to get into this sold out show? And so the thing is, we were pretty psyched because Peaches was opening, and we were really into her, and so we're like, oh, cool, you know. And then so she performed. John did his stand up piece, and then afterwards he was like taking questions, it was really weird because he came out into the audience and was like taking questions like right up like to people, and like signing stuff. It was really strange because I was like, how the hell, this seems like a bad idea for him, you know, to like come out and like mingle. And then I realized, oh, we're still in here because we have the red guest list passes.
The faux guest list pass. Yeah.
So like there was all these people and they kept like shoving like shit to him to sign, like little trinkets and books and stuff. And I remember thinking like, fuck, man, they're not gonna let up. Like, and so I just said like, I was like, I felt so bad for this woman he was like signing this woman's like thing, and I was like, John, hey man, it's JP from the Locust. I just want to say hi. And he like literally like just drops her shit and like turns and like grabs my hands and goes, I would like to meet you guys, or like I'd like to talk to you guys. Like hold on a minute. And I was like, oh shit, wow, okay.
Some rad.
So then he like talked and did a couple of things, and then he like said, okay, let me go up to this other guest list area, like the backstage thing. And so we went up there and shot the shit, and then that was like how we became friends. And it was just the craziest thing that we snuck in.
That's amazing. Yeah, you had to kind of punk rock grift your way in to the thing in the first place.
Yeah, because I mean there was no like conversation. It wasn't like he reached out and was like, hey, I want you to be in my film. It was like, someone else did it. I mean, he chose us and the songs, but like, we didn't have any like connection with him up until that point. But now it's cool. Like, I'll go to his house and we'll go out to dinner and shit. Like, it's pretty rad. So I love it.
He seems like he'd be a pretty rad dude.
He is. He's awesome. Yeah.
I don't want. It's been told many times in other formats, and I almost get annoyed when people talk to you about it. But is there anything about the Jerry Springer thing that has not been talked about, or something that hasn't been covered in some way, shape, or form?
I wrote about it extensively in one of my books.
I remember. Yep.
Yeah. And then there was like a recent piece that Vice.
Because it just doesn't die. It just keeps coming. It seems to like come back. Like,
I mean, it's a little annoying at times, like when I'm on tour with the Locust and people like associate it with a Locust thing, and I feel like bad for the rest of the band. Like I feel like maybe they're annoyed with me, but I do think it's a pretty cool accomplishment. And
yeah, it is. It's like it's a punk rock moment when there just wasn't that same. When there wasn't that same like cultural diaspora where people could engage on that way. You know what I mean? Like it was something like, whoa. Like it was more just like he's on TV,
Yeah.
like on the Jerry Springer show, like crazy.
But there was a lot of that kind of infiltration, I mean, even like earlier, like before me, that they would see like dudes from like Agnostic Front or fucking, well, I don't know who, maybe not Agnostic Front, but like like Jello and stuff like that, Gigi, and then but even like I think like Martine from Los Crudos is on Donahue for breakdancing, and like there's like the little things here and there, but I think the timing of the Springer thing and sort of like the just sheer audacity, like it made it like a thing and made it kind of like special, like I suppose, or I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and Jerry Springer's like, it blew me away when I was like, oh, that dude was like the mayor of a city, and like like he actually is like a pretty cool guy. Like
No, he was a total fucking dick.
Was he a dick? Oh, okay, never mind.
He only like wanted to talk to the ladies. Like he was really fucking rude to everybody if you were like not like a hot.
Oh, that's right. You said that in the thing. What am I talking about? Of course, yeah.
No, it's fine. I mean, maybe he would have been cool to me if I was hotter or something. But like I looked pretty stupid, and I think he was just probably like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" But whatever. He's also a performer too. Like I mean, I saw like more stuff than was aired on the show, and he definitely knew how to work it, and I could appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, owning the craft of jackassery intended to like make the entire culture more mundane. Just an objectively stupid thing celebrating the stupidity.
Sure. Yeah.
He owned it though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good on him. So we talked a bit about the kind of Mogas and Blast Beats kind of Locust thing. Did you ever feel that And again, you also mentioned, there was some, the heckling, like, longer songs, et cetera, et cetera. Locusts are like generally fast songs with like very audacious song titles. Like, what did you have like a book you kept like song title ideas in? How did the song title get attached to the song? What was the process with any of that?
Well, it depends on who wrote the song, the lyrics. So we all kind of wrote the song musically, but as far as lyrics go, it was typically one of the members writing the lyrics. So we would divvy it up, like, all right, this one's yours, Bobby, this one's yours, Joyce, so we'd each take it, and like the titles are kind of, it's like your thing, like that's how it worked. I mean, occasionally there was like I don't want to steal someone else's work, but like Gabe had had said, anything Jesus does I can do better, and I was like, that's a fucking song title. And so he wasn't writing lyrics in the band, so I was like, I'm using that for a song title, and that But for the most part, it was like, I think on the first EP, like Bobby wrote the I don't even know, halfway to a worthless ideal arrangement, and interlude to a discontinued sarcastic harmony, yeah, whatever, as the song title, which like took you longer to say it
than the actual song could be played, yeah.
But that was kind of like the first thing. Like, people were like, what the fuck? That's a title of a song? And so then we were kind of like, oh yeah, like, like that's kind of cool to kind of bring another, to kind of throw another piece of meat on the, on the grill. You're just like, oh yeah, we can also do that, because normal people don't write titles like that,
Yeah, it's not something that Smash Mouth is probably not working that. Smash Mouth, why is that what I went to? Whatever, you know what I mean.
But I mean, for instance, how do you say priest with the sexually transmitted diseases get out of my bed in a normal song title? That's the title. That's like but that's more of a lyric, but it is a title. So yeah, I don't know. I think who's the one that decided that your song title should be like one or two words? It just seems like a waste. I think you could say more.
Well, and it's a opportunity to kind of show the ethos of the band too, and like show that there are these maybe self-aware but sort of advanced concepts that are going on, but also kind of like, also that's just a funny thing to have a song be called too, and it's something where it worked on both levels, and it's, I think that was done to other effect as well by other bands, like Don Caballero did it, and was like, oh, I like SCTV too, right on, good for you. But sometimes it's annoying, and like for me, it never got annoying in a bad way for you guys, and I think that's again, that's a hard line to walk. So props for that.
But I think a lot of the aspects of annoying are cool, because
it's the good kind of annoying. Yeah, exactly. Like there's annoying where it's like, wow, that's just mediocre and annoying, and then there's like, oh, that's like blatantly obnoxious, and I kind of love it.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that really genuinely like noise music. That just seems like just fucking insane, But I mean, I like some of it a lot, But,
yeah.
But that's a thing. Like the people really grab onto noise. That's annoying. I mean, there's a lot of annoying things in life that I feel. I don't know. I mean, even beyond musical elements or artistic elements. I mean, annoying. I mean, I trolled Donald Trump on Twitter for the last 4 years. That's super annoying, And it was, it served no purpose. He was never going to read it, But I had fun, like, just talking shit. But and a lot of my tweets, I think, were like kind of like, oh, that could be a song title, or like kind of helped, like create.
Yeah, you kind of work through the process and can kind of find some nuggets of gold within the quips.
Yeah.
So last thing, I also want to kind of speak a little bit to TJ, to Tijuana, San Diego, for those, and there are a lot of international listeners to the show, but San Diego is sort of like the last stop in the U.S. before you hit Mexico. And there was quite the vital TJ and San Diego kind of crossover for a very long time. Could you speak a little bit to Tijuana in general, like seeing shows there, like, playing shows, all that kind of stuff? Like, I feel like that's a weird closed chapter to a certain degree in Donald Trump's America of punk rock history, and I just think it's so interesting. So could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, but I don't want to give that guy too much credit. I don't think he's going to stop it. You know, I mean, I think it's just. I mean, I think
it'll come back.
Yeah, but I think maybe the pandemic more than Trump.
Good point. All right.
Yeah. Well, okay. So when I was I moved to San Diego when I was 12, and I think maybe by the time I was 13, I found out about this place called Iguanas, and it was this venue in TJ that was a lot larger. I don't know what it would be equivalent to nowadays, but for instance, I went when it was 18 and up, and I was only 13, so I got a fake ID, and I went down there, and I saw some of the craziest shit happen there. So like at the time, I liked Bad Religion, you know, I saw Bad Religion, or I saw GBH, Guar, I don't know, Neurosis, MDC. Damn, man, I saw so much crazy shit there. Circle Jerks, PIL, Bad Brains. All these bands would play there, and that was where you would go. And I don't know why they wouldn't play in San Diego, or if they played in San Diego, it would be 21 and up. So I had a better
the all ages thing, yeah.
And by the way, as a 13-year-old, I looked like a 13-year-old, you know, so it was kind of crazy.
There's some 13-year-olds who look 30, where it's like, wow, okay.
But in DJ, it's lawless, and they were just kind of like, they wanted your money, you know, so for the ticket, you're like, whatever. So I would go in there and see shows all the time, and that was a really cool thing. And it was a trip because immediately when I started playing music, when I was 15, I played a show down there with Struggle, and that was crazy too because we played in this courtyard, and it was this International Workers' Day thing, and it was all these people that were totally not into punk and metal and stuff, and we performed for old working, like normal working class, like real working class people, and it was strange to play in this scenario, and it was not like a punk thing, you know. It was punk, but not like punk rock, you know. And it was such a strange vibe, and so that was kind of like my first introduction to like how to navigate playing down there. And then, you know, then of course, like later on, I went to see, like, my friends played. That band Filth played down there. I went to see Filth, and there was this. Oh, yeah. The DEA raided the venue, and it was 18 and up, and that was when they lined everybody up, and they were busting someone for something, and they carded me, and they asked me about my birth date, and I was like, holy shit, and I didn't know the real. I didn't memorize the date.
The date was on your fake ID. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he was like, you're gonna go to jail. And so they said, wait here, and they were like, you know, doing all the thing, and they like going through everybody lined up, and someone had a bunch of meth or something, and they tried to sneak out of the bathroom window, and the DEA shot him and killed him. And so they ended up letting all of us leave.
Wow.
I was just
so suddenly fake IDs are small potatoes.
Yeah, I was so grateful that, you know, my mom didn't know I was down there, and like I just thought,
oh man, and in Mexico too, like that's the one thing that they are not exaggerating about when they, you know, in movies and stuff like that, is you do not want to go to a Mexican jail.
No, yeah, it was crazy. So I had a lot of interesting experiences down there, but I was luckily enough I was. Oh yeah, also too, all my friends, I went down there with Matt Anderson from Heroin, and I remember and Rick Froberg was with us, and they were all on acid, and I was just like, holy shit, and I wasn't on acid. And this is bad. Here I am, like underage, going to jail in Mexico, and all my friends are on acid. But yeah, it worked out. Yeah, things always kind of work out. As long as you don't die.
Tijuana, great time as long as you don't die.
Well, you can equate that to the pandemic or whatever. You know.
Right. Now that's wow. That would be a very different life course if that had gone a different way that night, for sure.
Yeah, but again too, you know, throughout the years, I've had so many friends and bands that have shared members on both sides of the border, and it doesn't necessarily seem like another country. It seems
very fluid. It seems like there's a kind of a cross-pollination between everything.
Totally. Like most of my bandmates are in Los Angeles. A lot of my friends' bandmates are in Tijuana. Like it's sort of the same thing, you know.
Man, Tijuana. Someday we'll be able to we'll be able to move freely again. I believe it in my heart of hearts. Talk a little bit about Planet B. I think that's such a it's an interesting thing. Was that born out of doing the Asia Argento soundtracks? Is that correct? Do I have that right?
Yeah, that was how that kind of started. We wrote, some material, and then kind of wrote some songs, and then I think we had like 2 songs for the soundtrack that Gabe and I wrote, and then we had the soundtrack stuff, like the scoring, and then we got asked to play this live show at a library with a screening of the movie, so that kind of forced us to sort of like reconfigure it to be an actual band, and so then we started writing music, and then became a band eventually.
Was there different intent when you're putting together something that's like go into a film versus like, oh, I'm making music for a band? Like, did it hit differently?
Yeah, because Ozia said she wanted one.
Is that how you say it? Have I been mispronouncing her name all these years? Christ.
It's funny. I asked her how to say it when I first met her, and she said you can just call her Mud. And I was like, I think that's like a. Is that like a Primus? I think it's a Primus.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a Primus song. I mean, my name's Conan, and people have been mispronouncing my name since the dawn of freaking time. So it's like I tend to be sensitive on that, but I now realize I've been mispronouncing her name for like years.
Yeah. Well, I think she doesn't care. So she just said write 2 songs.
I care, JP. I care. Anyway, go ahead.
When I was a little kid, my mom called me JP because there was all these Justins that lived on our block. There was actually 3 Justins, so I became JP, which was fine. And then for some fucking stupid reason, these jerks at my school didn't like me, and they decided to call me JPP in my pants. And I was like, dude, I don't.
Oh, come on.
But I remember I kept saying like, I don't pee in my pants. You guys are fucking stupid. And then they ended up beating me up, and I was like, this is just lame. So anyhow, I get it.
Well, try being named Conan around the time of Conan the Barbarian. And, it's no JPP, but it wasn't.
Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger now is pretty rad, and
Conan O'Brien, when he became popular, my life became way easier. I was like, yeah, pronounce it like that, dude.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
He's pretty cool.
He is. Anyway, let's not talk about my name. So Planet B. Asia Argento was there was a film, there was movie soundtracking to be done.
Sure. Yeah. Well, she had a very specific goal to have 2 songs that were for the film that were like 80s kind of punk-ish. So that was the 2 that Gabe wrote, and then the rest of the score was based on these melodies that she had. So it was kind of, nothing like the material that we ended up doing, because for Luke, he was Luke Henshaw. He's his instrument is the MPC, or 2 of them. So and also he's like a hip hop dude mainly. He does all kinds of stuff, cumbia and all these other kind of bands, but like that's kind of like his jam or whatever. And so and essentially we ended up kind of working in elements of hip hop, and then by the way that he would say like suggest vocal phrasing or like the way that the beats were, the structure was, it essentially I ended up rapping without like being a rapper, and so that was kind of like a thing that wasn't really thought out. It just happened. Like, we're gonna keep writing music, and we worked really well and got along really well. And then it was a trip because I would hang out with him in the studio, and like kind of his homies that were like from the like graffiti world and the hip hop world would hear it and just be like, "What the fuck? This is crazy. You got to go like to these rap battles and do that shit." And I was like, what? like 8 Mile, I don't know. Like, here I am, like the stupid white guy or whatever. But I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, like no one ever, because they were kind of just like, it's basically like rap, and you're just fucking super brutal.
And you're coming at it from a place that's from your lived experience and from your musical background, which is going to be way different than like someone that's coming from that musical background.
Sure, and but musically and structurally, it's very similar. Like there's 16 bars and the verse and the chorus. It's like set up, and Luke would always kind of nudge me to like sort of work in these sort of vocals that were almost in the like artistic realm of hip hop, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, that's cool. Like, little things, you know, that were hard. Like instead of saying like motherfucker, like, like say like motherfucker, you know. And I'm like, wait a minute, dude, that's not me. Like, but like, I'll give him credit. Like, he really did push for certain things to kind of come out a certain way, and it was awesome. But the problem that him and I struggled with initially was like making these beats that were kind of like, that were cool and sounded rad, but sounded like they needed a rapper on them, not a dude that's yelling like. And
totally, because that's a distinction, right? That's a huge distinction. Yeah.
So when we first started writing together, it was pretty grim, because I kept saying, dude, I feel like a total shithead yelling. Like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I can't. Like, it sounds like an annoying guy screaming over like this really cool thing. We were trying to work on this Britney Spears cover and all this weird shit.
Yeah.
And it was just strange and not really. It didn't really make sense for a while until I said, make the beats harder and bigger and meaner and more aggressive, so where they warranted a person yelling on it. So it was, you know. And too, like, you know, I listen to a lot of hip hop now with a different perspective, where I wonder why is there not aggression there, or why is there not, like, especially with like SoundCloud rap and stuff, it seems very one dimensional. There's like the sound, and then there's like a dude kind of mumbling, and then that would never work for me. Like, I think it needs to be like essentially like a hardcore band, but rap, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, Portishead beats with like HR doing his Bad Brains thing over it, you know, would like, I would be super interested to hear what that sounded like, but it would probably be kind of jarring, you know. It wouldn't necessarily be it would be two great tastes, but do they taste great together?
but that's a good example, like, because the Portishead beats are very, there's a nuance to it where it had like a sense of coolness to it, where a lot of Luke's original pieces that he was writing and wanted me to sing on was almost too cool. And I said, man, it needs to be annoying and just fucked up, you know. And
can you mean it up a little bit?
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, he and I have had an insane amount of conversations trying to find the right dialogue to explain like the essence of like how to make it just sound fucked up.
But that's cool. I mean, that's cool though, because like some of it has almost like a, you know, like sci-fi feel in some cases, and you know, it hits differently because of, I think, you know, whatever is not communicated in the conversation. Like, what happens in the middle can be actually more compelling than maybe what either side originally intended sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's an interesting thing, because I think it kind of happened on accident, which I'm well.
Yeah.
But same with the Locust or most of the other projects, where even like where Dead Cross is headed. Like, I think the accidents are the where it shows like it shows an element of sincerity, you know, and honesty, where you don't really realize what you just did. You're just like, oh shit, that just happened, you know. I mean, there's influences, and that stuff will make itself heard at times, but for the most part, I feel like maybe it was accidental, and that shows honesty. So.
It's like Bob Ross. It's a happy little accident, a happy little tree over here, you know.
I mean, if Luke and I were like, let's start a hip hop band, that would have been terrible. I think we had to do all this stuff and figure things out.
How did the collab with Kool Keith end up coming to pass? Like, what's the story there? That was definitely two great tastes that taste great together, but totally unexpected kind of situation.
Someone introduced us to him, and we just hit him up, and he was into it, and that was that. The dude is insane.
Yeah, it seems like that's a dude that like marches to his own everything, right? I mean, like, he's got his own. Yeah. Like,
you know, it worked out really, really well. I think the song, and we went and recorded a bit of a video that we released for the song with him. I was on tour with Dead Cross, actually, and that night I said, oh, I'm playing, you want to come out to the show? And recently, before that, I guess there was a Yeah Yeahs record that came out that featured him on one of the songs. And I said, oh, you know, Nick Zinner from the Yeah Yeahs will be at the show. You know, assuming assuming he knew what I was talking about. He's like, oh yes, he's like, no, but he said, Nick. Oh, last time I saw him, we hung out like at his mom's house, and he like told this big long story about Nick's mom's house and the brick wall, the brick. What are they called there? Like the buildings that are brick.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
On. Elaborate story about hanging out with Nick and his mom. What the fuck? And it kind of didn't make a lot of sense. I was like, cool. Well, I'll see you tonight, at the show and whatever, and we can hang out with Nick. And then I go to the show. He didn't show up. And I told Nick, and I said, hey, yeah, Keith's supposed to be here. And he told me this weird story about when he hung out with you and your mom. And he said, oh, that's weird. I've never met him before. He's actually never met anybody in the YAS.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. I love that. What an original dude, man. Yeah. That's the best way I can put that. What an original dude, man.
And I can only hope that there's someone now that's like working on a project with them, and they're like, oh, what the Planet B track, and he just like goes off on this crazy thing about like dog grooming or something, and then it's like not us,
Yeah, we never groomed dogs with Kool Keith, man. That never happened.
I know.
But man, if you did, where's that reality show?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the one band fucking Retox. We haven't talked about Retox at all. So can you tell me a little bit about, because I think there's a lot of folks that were kind of tuned in the Locust stuff and they kind of tuned back in on Dead Cross, but Retox is a real interesting band. How did Retox come to pass as an act, as a project, as a band, et cetera, originally? And then let's get into that a little bit while we got time.
Yeah, mainly it was one of those kind of Gabe Serbian suggestions to start a band that was like Headwound City, because Headwound City wasn't playing at that point. This is before the Headwound City.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure, yeah.
We just did the EP, the Headwound City EP, and Gabe was like, let's do a band like that. And then we both were a big fan of the Festival of Dead Deer. And so I said, let's get Mike to play guitar. And then Gabe was living in LA, I think maybe, or something. So him and Mike started the band up there. And like most bands, except for the Locust, Gabe quit. And then we got a second drummer, and kind of pushed forward. But yeah, it was one of those bands where we kind of just went full force right away. And I mean, we put out a 7-inch and then toured Europe, we toured in England. It was the worst idea ever. I think Mike really wanted to go to England. He'd never been on tour overseas, and pushed us to go, and it was a fucking nightmare. It was like the biggest bunch of bullshit. We lost a lot of money, but we went to England. Anyhow, we came back, Gabe quit, we got a different drummer, and then we signed Epitaph and started, pushing forward and playing music. And it was one of those things where I feel like it was one of those bands that was really a lot of hard work, a lot of like annoying, kind of bad, crappy, not that great things happened to us. And then eventually we all kind of got burnt out. and then we just let it go. But I mean, I looked back and I really loved the music that we created. And I think it was, I mean, for my contribution as a lyricist and a vocalist, I learned a lot in that process from the first LP to the last. I think I really grew as a singer, and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, the band disbanded. I think we just kind of like, we just couldn't get we couldn't get a break. I think we were just kind of like, fuck it.
It's a story with a lot of bands, like a lot of otherwise good bands, like just inertia can hurt that way. And it's a shame. I think it was a super interesting band, but I mean, obviously you might go to and find in Dead Cross. Like it's not like you're sitting around, lamenting back in the day or anything along those lines. Oh God, speaking of back in the day. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, there's different dynamic though, because I'm not the singer,
Right. It's a totally different instruments, different approach, different everything. But I mean, as far as just like, playing music together
I wonder though, like if I would have just been pushed into being the singer of Dead Cross, if Retox wasn't a band at that time, because I think Mike was like, oh yeah, we'll get him to play bass, not sing because we already have Retox. It'd be like,
Yeah, because it's different. Because it's you get to like engage in a different way, and do a different thing. Do a different thing and engage in a different way. I was just gonna say real quick. We never talked about Swing Kids, and I know it's 1,000 years ago, but it is something where there is this kind of new generation of like kids getting into, like, for lack of a better term, like noise rock, and kind of digging up bands like Swing Kids and being like, hey, have you heard this? It's so great. It's amazing. And, what are your thoughts? Like all these years later, what are your thoughts on that? Cause I always thought it was like, oh, they're good. Like, yeah, like they're kind of like doing a Jehu thing, but it's like, this is cool. Awesome.
You nailed it. The Jehu thing. It was, I think I've been over the years like pretty hard on the band, because I think we sound too much like Drive Like Jehu. And at the time, I mean, Eric Allen's passed away, so it's hard to like speak for him. But I think at the time we didn't really realize how much it sounded like Drive Like Jehu.
Which, if you're gonna sound like a band, that band's pretty freaking. Yeah, and it's not like you guys sounded like Drive Like Jehu Jr. necessarily, but it's
like, did. We kind of did. And to me, I just was like, ugh. But I don't know. I guess
Jeez.
I want to get. I will say that I think that the weak link in the band is me. I think I was a terrible singer and I did not know how to write lyrics. So I think Eric's guitar playing was brilliant, and obviously like Jose is insane. Fucking weird drummer, and John Brady too. Everybody was really good. I just think I was the weak link. But when people like dig it up and say like, oh, like this like discovering it now, I don't understand. But like the people that say like this did something for me when I was that age or when it first came out, I will acknowledge that and respect that, because there's a lot of stuff that really of that time maybe wasn't something that was very good, but spoke to me for whatever reason, because we were all weird and it was a weird world and we were trying to figure out like life and how to be a human being and stuff. And so I think that maybe it spoke to those people, but for the most part, I kind of cringe at the music. I miss, and then again, like I miss Eric a lot. So like, that's the one thing that kind of keeps it relevant to me. Cause I'm like, that was my contribution to music with him. And that's that. But yeah, I don't know. I do, as much as I want to say like, fuck that band, it was not that good. I think it's, I appreciate people liking it. And I think it's one of those things where like, whatever, there's cooler stuff. Listen to both Jehu records. You'll be better off. And then
well, it's not an either or situation, but I mean, like, I get where you're going with it. But it's also like, it's. I guess it's interesting to me to see kids like discovering this stuff for the first time, like with a different context and kind of like that recontextualization stuff, and like, oh yeah, Swing Kids are good. Have you heard the other bands? Have you heard Locust? Have you heard Swoop Lake Johnny? Have you heard, like, and it's like not to like put a patch on it or anything along those lines, but it's there seems to be this idea, and maybe it has to do with the instant availability of everything, that when somebody discovers something, like, oh, I'm the only one that knows about this, like it's like, hey, check it out, and I don't know, it kind of gives things that maybe you thought were ephemeral and of the time, kind of like another life, like a longer lasting thing. I don't know how to reconcile that necessarily, but it is something where when people bring up Swing Kids, like, oh yeah, Swing Kids, cool. Huh. Haven't thought about them in a while. All right.
It's one of those things where like I think time does something, because I remember, I'm trying to think of like two examples. Like a good example for a good record would be for me is when I discovered The Accused, Martha Splatterhead and Maddest Stories Ever Told. I was like, this is such a great record. And then you listen to it now and you're kind of like, there's some questionable stuff on there, but it's still a good record. And I wonder like how much of me still enjoying it is nostalgia and how much of it is something else. But then there's like a band where where I liked it when it first came out, maybe in the late 80s or early 90s, and I hear it now and I'm pretty sure it's not good at all,
Yeah,
I actually like couldn't think of an example, but I thought of one. But I'm gonna be better than that and not say it. But I'm sure anybody can relate to that. Something you're like, I really like that when I was 14, but that is garbage now, and it will remain garbage.
Yeah, but it will continue to be garbage later down the line. So thank you so much for doing this. This has been a blast. I don't want to. I kind of want to talk about 31G as well, but I don't know if we can cover a label that has been around and doing awesome stuff as long as it has in a short amount of time and not do it a disservice. But I think it's pretty fantastic that you do it, and like the fact that you can find bands like Microwaves on there, and where it's like, oh fuck yeah, Microwaves on 31G. Yes, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense.
That's a good example too, because I obviously love the band and knew of them and knew of the members and stuff. But I remember like after the record came out in 31G, I remember finding out that the drummer was in the 1985. And I was like, holy shit, I love that CD, man. That's so rad. I had no idea that you were in that band that I had discovered back before I knew Microwaves. So anyhow, it's one of those things, like it makes sense, it's family and it's inevitable.
Did you ever listen to Night Vapor? Like his Romans of it, which is great because it's like that's the only band that has a singer. It's like, oh, like it sounds like you're having a seizure, and I love it. It's like the entire, like that band is so absolutely fucked in the best possible way. And the first time I saw them, I was just like smiling every time.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, 31G, all praise to 31G. Justin, thank you so much for doing this, man. Last thing I ask folks when I have them on the show, and you can choose to interpret this however you like. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but why do you do what you do?
I mean, the go-to answer would just be because I have to. I mean, it sounds sort of cliche or some like emo bullshit, but it is really because I have. I didn't really. It wasn't. I didn't like as a child when someone said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I didn't say I'm going to do this. I thought I'm going to be an astronaut or a soccer player or whatever. Who knows? And politician. And then all of a sudden I'm like, even when I first got into music, I never thought it would be a thing that I could sustain my life with, because to me, I was looking at musicians, like David Bowie and stuff. And I thought, oh, that's unattainable. That's just something that I have to like. And that's another kind of creature on the planet that's not like me. And not that I'm like David Bowie, but what I'm saying? Like, I never thought it would be like a sustainable thing where I could just go and function as a human being playing music all around the planet and reach people to any level. So I think it was just a gradual thing where at some point I was like, oh shit, look what picked me. And that's that. I tried to do other things. I tried to go to college and shit, and I was like, oh, I can go on tour. I'm gonna drop out and go on tour.
I was gonna say it didn't take, as it turns out, right?
I mean, I dropped out of college probably at least, 7 times. Just kind of like, all right, here goes this tour, and then I'll come back to it, and then nope, not again. So it was more important, and I think that might say that's it choosing me, saying like, no, don't do whatever the fuck you're trying to get a degree on. Just do the music thing. Or the art thing,
Well, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm glad you didn't go to college. Proper. And when I say go to college, I mean Milo goes to college. That's style.
Yeah.
Justin Pearson, thank you so much, man. This has been a blast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care, brother.
Man. Take care.
Oh, there he goes. Justin Pearson. What a bad guy.
What they
Seizure and Desist off of the 2017 Dead Cross record. And before that, we had off of New Erections from 2007. Yes, erections, not elections. We have reached an official verdict, Nobody Gives a Shit. One of my favorite song titles of the long song title, Pantheon. And before that, Anything Jesus Does, I Can Do Better, off of Plague Soundscapes, which is off 2003. Both those are from the Locust. All of them feature Justin Pearson. Yeah, great. What a cool guy. What a blast. There's a lot to get to there. I feel good about it. Hopefully you guys got something out of it as well. Yeah, good dude. Good dude. Where did the time go? Where did the time go? Where have all the good times gone?
Is this thing on?
Rad. So, yeah, that's Justin Pearson. He's a... Look, I could sit here and list all the things he's done. 31g.com for the record label. He's on the internet. He's on Instagram. He's on Twitter. yelling at Trump apparently. Oh yes. The name of the show is Conan and Justin's Protonic Reversal. This show airs on Radio Nope, radionope.com, Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. ProtonicReversal.com for the archives. Patreon.com/ProtonicReversal if you like the show and want to get episodes sooner. $1 a month will get you there. Feel free to give more, though. I think you can do that. We won't turn it down.
This is my farewell transmission.
We're on all the things. If you review it, it helps people find the show. Thanks for people who've been doing that have nice things to say.
Mr. and Mrs. America, all the ships at sea.
No thanks to the YouTube comments.
Anyone within the sound of my voice.
Some thanks to the YouTube comments. Songs That Spell coming up. Music on, music off. Stick around.
50,000 watts of power.
It's a weird time to be doing much of anything, let alone doing this show, but I'm happy to be doing it, and thank you for listening to it. There's much more to come.
This microphone turns sound into electricity.
Stay safe out there.
Can you hear me now? Out on Route 128,
Take it easy.
dark and lonely. I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 See in the radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor, haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency,